Welcome to Decoding the Data Ecosystem, a podcast with valuable insights, inspiring stories, and practical advice to guide you on your journey through the world of omics research and how the NIH Common Fund data ecosystem can support that journey. I'm your host, Dr. Allissa Dillman, and I'm the Training and Engagement Director of the CFDE Training Center. My background's in bioinformatics, and I've been working in bioinformatics and data science training and engagement space for almost the past 15 years. I'm really passionate about lowering the barriers of entry for these fields through creative engagement activities such as these podcasts. Now let's get to the show.
I am here today with Swathi Thaker, Programs Operation Manager at the Systems Pharmacology AI Research Center at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Swathi.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today. My background actually is I have a PhD in adult education, but my professional experience focuses on program management. So in addition to serving as the program manager at CFDE for the Integration and Coordination Center, I also manage the NIH Betrayal project. And before coming to UAB, I was at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, where I was a program manager for the Influenza division at CDC.
Very cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Integration and Coordination Center that is part of the CFDE and sort of its role within the ecosystem as a whole?
Sure. So the Integration and Coordination Center, or ICC, you can think of it as a connector and organizer for the CFDE community. CFDE brings together many NIH Common Fund programs, such as data coordinating centers, researchers, technical teams, NIH partners. The ICC helps those groups work as one ecosystem instead of many different projects. So we help by coordinating meetings, communication channels, calendars, working groups, providing newsletters, and our group is hoping to connect all the different projects that are happening and taking place across the consortium.
So I love that, the word ecosystem is really sort of front and center for the work that we do, because it really is more than just infrastructure. Like you pointed out, it's also about, all the people within the community. So I'd really like to kind of talk a little bit more about, what does community building mean in the context of, a biomedical data ecosystem like this that's quite complex and has a lot of different parts to it.
Yes. So to me, I guess I would say that community building means making sure that people behind the data can work together. As you mentioned, data infrastructure is, of course, very important. But data doesn't become useful just because it's there or just because it exists. And so people need to know what data sets are available, how to use them, who to ask for help, and how their work connects to other programs. And so in CFDE, community building means creating spaces where researchers, data scientists, program managers, and even NIH staff can learn from one another. And so part of our goal at the ICC is to help all these different groups come together, help build trust, share lessons learned, and help people see that their individual program is a lot larger and part of a larger shared effort.
So I'm curious, Swathi, you mentioned when you were kind of talking about your background that you have a PhD in adult education. And I'm super curious, do you think that this kind of helps in your role with community building? I'd love to hear more about that.
I think so. I think part of adult education is understanding how adults learn, what motivates them, what drives them to want to learn new things and explore different topics. And so I think that lends itself some to program management and trying to build collaborations, trying to understand what are different channels and different avenues that might appeal to adults to help them better understand and learn about all the different projects that are taking place across CFDE.
So how do you all at the ICC help facilitate collaboration between the different data coordinating centers and programs?
So I think one of our main goals is to try to lower the barriers that might be present in trying to connect all the different data sets and all the different amazing events that are taking place across the entire consortium. So we focus on trying to keep shared documents organized, maintaining a shared calendar, which, as you know, it's just got started and is slowly building up. But we're hoping that's one avenue that we hope that is going to help people to better see all the different events that are taking place across CFDE. We also have Slack, mailing list communications. We support the working groups, and we try to make sure that people have access to the notes and action items that come out of all of these different meetings so that everyone's aware of what's happening across all the different projects and even what NIH is hoping for the program as a whole.
So, out of curiosity, what sorts of working groups are happening across CFDE? If there's a lot of them, you could just like highlight a couple, just so we get kind of a big picture understanding of all of the different components that are happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's numerous working groups. Some of the big ones I would say are there's one surrounding the knowledge graph. And so that brings together folks from many different projects across CFD looking at ways that their data can be included into a knowledge graph that shows all the different connections. There's also one that's focused on ontology, and there's also one focused on training. So, which helps to get the word out about all the different tools and amazing data that's being made available by the consortium and helping people learn how to use those different data sets.
So, what kinds of tools do you all use at the ICC to help encourage collaboration, within sort of these working groups, but like kind of, largely across all of these different programs and institutions, right? There's different disciplines that you guys kind of reach across, everything from clinical to, AI. How do you actually like encourage collaboration in all these different spaces?
So, in terms of tools, so we have Slack, which I think is pretty well utilized across the consortium. I wouldn't say that everybody is on there, but it is one avenue that I think allows us to reach a wide range of individuals. We've also taken, note of what is of interest to people across the consortium and tried to create separate channels for those to make it easier for people to find the messages that they're looking for. So like there's different channels for the working groups. There's one for events. And we try to make the process seamless. So in terms of, I mentioned the shared calendar. So we're currently working on ways to connect like events that are entered into Slack to try to connect that and automatically have it pipe into the shared calendar so that hopefully we, miss less of events that are happening because so many things are going on and, not everybody remembers to put it into the calendar or even tell us. And so we don't want to miss out on those opportunities to share all the amazing work that's happening.
So I definitely have, built communities and used Slack for them. But I'm curious to kind of hear if you have any recommendations for like how best to utilize Slack in like a community building process. Is there any like tips or tricks or anything that really kind of seems to work for this particular community?
I don't know if I necessarily have a specific tip, but I think trying to find those topics that are of interest to folks and making it easily accessible is key. Another one is, like I mentioned, trying to figure out how you can take information that is maybe shared in Slack and promote it across other different channels and different avenues so that people that may not be on Slack will also be able to find out about whatever it is that's being talked about there. And so, for example, we might share something on Slack, but then we also try to make sure that it's included in the newsletter or that it's shared across the mailing list, or perhaps it's shared within LinkedIn so that you're trying to reach as many people as possible in all the different avenues that you can think of so that you, in case somebody doesn't use Slack, they can see it somewhere else and still be knowledgeable about what's happening.
Yeah, I would definitely say having multiple types of communication does really help, especially if you've got like quite a broad group of folks, because some
Yes,
communities tend to communicate one way versus another.
yes.
So when you're sort of trying to juggle all these different ones, having as many comms avenues as possible certainly helps. But then it means more work for you all, for sure.
Yeah. Which, and I think that's part of why we're trying to see what are some of the things that maybe can be automated um, to make it more seamless and decrease the burden on everybody within the consortium to say like, okay, well maybe if you can just put it in this one spot or let this one person know, then we can try to disseminate it across all the different channels that are available to us.
Yeah. Speaking of navigating some of these challenges, I'm interested to kind of hear if there are some, like what are the biggest challenges in coordinating such a diverse, community of communities, kind of, right?
Yes. Yes. I'd say one of the biggest challenges probably is that every program has its own history, its own goals, its own data types, its own terminology. And some groups have been working for a really long time, long before we even came on board. And so we don't want to necessarily just jump in and provide input or things that we think should be done without really understanding all the challenges and all the work that they've gone through to get where they are right now. And so another challenge would also be that the to make sure that the data is not only available but also usable. So to making sure that it, aligns with fair data principles, to making sure that people know where it is, how to access it, what type of data is available in that specific portal, and what data might be can be matched across maybe different projects, um, so that they can, go to maybe multiple projects across the consortium and find that same data type.
Yeah. And I will say, so the training center, we're also, fairly new in this ecosystem, and it certainly has been, um, interesting to kind of navigate the fact that we are sort of newer players. And to your point, there's been folks who've been doing this for, like 10 years almost. So like one of the first
Yes.
things we did was kind of like a landscape analysis of like, who all is already doing training and what amazing training have they already done and what communities in the training space are they already in contact with. So we're not reinventing the wheel. Is there something or something kind of like that you did when you all came on board at first as the ICC? Like, was there something that kind of helped you guys navigate this very broad ecosystem?
Yes. So we did I don't want to say take over, but there was another group that was serving kind of in our role, although they did multiple things. They also did some of the training. So it was a group that piloted this idea of having a group that kind of focused on this coordination piece. And so they did help us a little bit on sharing what they had done so far, what they had learned. But I will say what we did when we first started, just like you guys, is we actually attended as many meetings as we could. And we tried to meet with each project. We joined their, update meetings with NIH to learn about what each project was doing, where they were, what are some of the barriers they were facing, especially in terms of coordination and collaboration, which is where our focus is, and trying to come up with ways that we could help them overcome some of the things that they were facing.
I will say for at least for me, one of the best kind of crash courses, or so to speak, that I got from, what exactly is the Common Fund data ecosystem and what is our role in it and what are all the different components, was actually when we went to the consortium meeting. I feel like things really clicked for me. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, CFDE has two consortium meetings in the spring and in the fall that you all at the ICC organize. So could you tell us a little bit more about those meetings and kind of what are the goals and who attends?
Yes, absolutely. So the two there, like as you mentioned, there's two meetings, and it's usually one in the fall and one in the spring. The fall is typically meant to be a little more focused on the leadership of CFD. So you think of principal investigators, program managers, technical leads, that type of thing, where people meet and are kind of discussing more strategic aspects of CFDE and what they would like to see moving forward. What are the main topics that they think people should be discussing? What are items that we should be focusing on? Whereas the spring meeting is open to a wide range, a lot broader of an audience, if that makes sense. It's more of a chance for people to come and showcase what they've been working on. It has a poster session. Lately, the past two meetings, we've tried to focus a little more on demos as well, so people can have an opportunity to showcase the tools that they're working on. And it gives people an opportunity to come together, share accomplishments, and also get feedback on the things that they're working on, as well as giving early career individuals an opportunity to share their research as well.
And so is the spring meeting the one that's a little bit more broad? Is that still kind of though focused on folks who have some sort of CFDE support, or is it open to kind of anybody in the omics field?
So currently, I will say that it has been focused on people within CFDE, but I think moving forward, we're not only us, but I think there has been interest among CFDE as a whole to kind of broaden our reach. And this gets back to, again, building collaborations and getting the data sets out there and letting people know all of the amazing work that's being done within the consortium and building a user base for each of these tools and products. And so I think my hope is that moving forward, we will slowly begin to start inviting some external groups and partners that we can begin to showcase all of this work with others outside of CFDE.
Yeah, I would imagine that, people who've been using CFDE resources but are not necessarily a part of the ecosystem would make for some really interesting perspectives on how they've, navigated the whole complex ecosystem without being inside it, right? Because I feel like once you're inside it, it feels very different than when you're, outside and you don't necessarily know who do I need to reach out to and how can I navigate this thing and where do I find this data? It becomes a little bit clearer as you kind of get further in.
Yeah, so you guys have done a great job. I know at one of the first meetings that you were a part of, you kind of held that scavenger hunt, just getting people to try and see what can they find, of the data that's available. And I think that kind of thing is very helpful, not only for the folks trying to use the data, but for us too, to say what's working, what isn't working, what could be made easier, what are the obstacles, what are the barriers for folks that are trying to access all of this data.
So for somebody who has never been to a CFDE meeting, what exactly does that experience look like? What's in store for them?
Yeah, so I would say a CFD meeting is kind of like a mix of a scientific conference plus a working session and a community gathering. I mean, part of it is for all of us to get together and see one another in person. And so there are presentations from the centers as well as programs have an opportunity to share updates. CFDE also has partnerships that are, not necessarily completely part of CFDE, but are also part of the ecosystem, and we don't hear from them very often. And these meetings give them a chance to come and share what they're working on and build those collaborations and connections. And so someone attending for the first time, I would say, would see people talking not only about the results, but also about practical questions. As I mentioned, the fall meeting does focus a little more on strategic opportunities. And so that might be things on how do we make the data easier to use and how can we connect one tool to another? What standards should we be using? And then like for your center, what training do users need? And I think part of that at these meetings is that's why we always allow time for the working groups to meet. And I think this provides a valuable opportunity for people to meet face to face and discuss some of these issues and see how we can keep moving that needle forward.
Yeah, I have to say for us, these like in-person meetings have been super great. One of my favorite, things that this helped with is we got to do an in-person visual podcast with VR and Andy, and that was thanks to us already being all together at the meeting.
Yes.
So we really try to take advantage of when we're together, doing some kind of interesting things. And actually, at the last meeting, we recorded a bunch of like quick data viz videos, chatting with people at CFDE about what data viz means to them. So like it's been super super helpful and kind of great community building to just get everybody together. So I know that lots of different things happen at these meetings. You've mentioned demos, you've mentioned posters, you've mentioned working groups. Out of curiosity, like, have you noticed that there are particular sessions or types of interactions that really spark the most interactions and sort of fosters that community building aspect?
Yes, definitely. I would say the poster session is always a highlight for everyone. I think giving that opportunity, not only for the junior scholars, but just for everyone to have a chance to walk around and see all the amazing work that's being done. There's so many different projects that are happening, and there's no way for us to know all of that just by attending one working group meeting or even a steering committee meeting. Um, we just can't understand everything that's going on. And I know that by allowing folks that opportunity to walk around and see all the different research that's happening, it's definitely opened up avenues for people to collaborate. It's helped us in for sure, even our center just by itself. We've seen other people doing work that's similar to ours and of interest to us, and we've reached out to them and tried to find ways that we can continue to work together. Um, Another one would be the demos. I think people have really enjoyed being able to dive into a specific tool and see how it works. Also, in the past, the cloud workspace, has had the opportunity to share about Galaxy. And I think people have really enjoyed that as a demo as well to understand how to use it and how they can take advantage of that resource that's being provided to CFDE. And then, of course, everyone always likes the networking opportunities. And so we always try to work hard to try to build in some downtime when possible. It's always a challenge. But I think just having time to have some of those informal conversations is also really important, whether it's over lunch or during breaks. Just giving people that unstructured time to just meet and talk about things that may not be on the agenda, but are important as well.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, it's really nice to be able to connect with folks in person. And actually, an idea that I've been kicking around in my head for a while that I think would be really fun to do in one of our meetings at some point is a live podcast. I think that would be really fun. But I think we're going to have to work out some of the logistics first.
Yeah, you hear about the fireside chat, I think they call it. I've heard that a lot lately. So,
Yeah.
but yes, yeah, they tried to have something kind of like that at the Bridge JI meeting
Oh, okay. I'll have to
a
take
few
a
weeks ago,
look.
but it wasn't, they didn't record it. I mean, I don't know exactly what they did, but they called it a fireside chat, but it was with NIH folks. Um, but I think that was the hope behind it, was it would be something similar to that.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
potentially stay tuned.
yes, that's right.
So, I'd love to know if you have any particular examples that kind of jump out for you as, collaborations or projects that really kind of ignited or at least like really started to roll faster after, one of these CFDE meetings.
Yeah, so I think I don't want to say necessarily that we, instigated the collaboration, but I will say that by providing the opportunity for people to come together and having people in the same room, I think definitely makes a difference. I mentioned some of the U24 partnerships earlier, and I think these meetings have also provided those groups space to meet. We've set aside time, such as the biomarker program, data distillery, um, things like that. They've had the time to kind of meet in person, set aside, and they've had the opportunity for others to join their group too that maybe don't normally do so. And I think that's helped to spur those projects forward, and get them to a place where they may not have gotten to as quickly because they had that opportunity to meet face to face.
So you've mentioned these partnership programs a couple of times, and I'm curious to sort of hear a little bit more about what exactly does that mean? What are these partnership programs?
So, if I remember correctly, I believe they are projects that draw on two or more CFDE resources, if that makes sense. So, like one of them is focused, say, I know one of them is focused around the knowledge graph, and so that partnership is bringing, I can't remember exactly how many but it draws from multiple CFDE projects to create that knowledge graph. And so it's a way to try again to build collaboration across the consortium. So, but it provides a different funding avenue for groups that have these ideas of, oh, I'm working on this, but now if I combine my data and my project with these two others, I can do something that I wasn't able to before.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. One of the goals of these meetings is, as you mentioned, right, really to help people share tools and progress across programs. And I'm curious if you feel like there's anything that you will do at these CFDE meetings that really creates an environment that kind of uniquely helps with that collaboration aspect that maybe is not necessarily present in most large scientific conferences.
Yes. So I will say that I think we try to not focus solely on presentations only. We try not, I think seeing results is important, but we also like to show works in progress, which you can think about, the poster session, some of those might be works in progress that people are working on and they're looking for feedback and they say, this is where we are right now, and we want to move it this way. Do you have any ideas? Um, it also brings together people from all different backgrounds that are interested in using these different tools. And so I think our hope for these meetings is that it feels more like a community than a traditional conference. It's most of the time these meetings are full of people that actually use and connect and evaluate and sustain these tools. And I think getting back to that thought of are there others outside of CFDE joining these meetings? I think that's the other reason for going in that direction is trying to bring in people outside of CFDE to continue to build that user base and have them become users of these tools to help keep the momentum and keep these data sets alive and moving forward.
That's a really good point. So CFDE involves researchers, data engineers, program officers, and really everybody in between. Kind of spans the gamut. Obviously you've talked about the CFDE meetings some, but in general, sort of how do you create spaces where these different roles can collaborate effectively?
Yeah, so I think again, I think Slack is one way. We're trying to create some space there. So not just only at these meetings, but trying to create a space where people can communicate, can reach out, can ask questions. But within the meetings themselves, I think we do try to create different spaces for different types of conversations. And so you can imagine like the large sessions are often about sharing results and sharing data. Whereas the smaller sessions, focus such as those that are focused on working groups or breakout sessions, which are focused on specific topics, are meant to be those smaller spaces where people can have more of a dialogue and brainstorming. Sometimes they're used as brainstorming sessions for folks that have an idea and they are looking for ways to build on it or trying to learn from others that may have done something similar. And then we do try to bring in folks from outside of CFDE as well to try to share. So we've, recently had Kathy Wu talk about Uniprot. Um, they've shared how they've focused on evaluation of that program. And maybe there's ways that we here at CFDE can utilize something that they've already done and what can we take from what they've learned and build on that. And Spark, has shared information on their user base analysis that they've done and different ways that they've tried to grow their user base for those programs that might be nearing the end as well and are in that same category of trying to build the user base now that they have their tools in place. And so I think having these different spaces is important, and we're always looking for feedback, and hope that folks will share feedback with us, and if they have suggestions for different things that they would like to see at these meetings, we're always open, and we try to. That's why we don't plan these meetings in isolation. We encourage everyone to join the program planning committee. We always hope that we'll have representation from all the projects and all the centers, but we know everybody's super busy. But we're always grateful for those that are able to join and provide their insights to things that they think are important to be discussing and things that they would like to see, and even just simply even the format. Like maybe they think a panel's better. They want to hear from multiple perspectives and not just one person.
So besides the two CFDE meetings that happen every year, are there any other kinds of like community events or activities that you think particularly keep the ecosystem active and connected?
Yes, so I think the Knowledge Center has done a great job in setting up the public webinar series where, every month they feature some group from CFDE and give them the opportunity to come and share about their project, what they're working on. That is tried to share broadly as possible, not just within CFDE. So they're trying to get the word out. They're trying to get others outside of CFDE to join and to come learn about all the different projects that are happening. And of course, you guys, I think the training center has done a fabulous job with all the events that you've got the podcast, you've planned hackathons, which I think are amazing, with this data being generated by CFDE, which I think is outstanding. And then even just, I think different folks are doing their best trying to get information out on social media. So I think that's also important. Trying to share with the broader community about all the different things that are happening because there are so many pieces to CFDE, and I think it can be confusing for people that are not familiar with the with the ecosystem. What is it?
Oh yeah.
Or oh, I didn't even know this was a part of CFDE. And I think there's people probably within even our own consortium that struggle with that. So
I do feel like CFD is a little like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, like a really
Yeah.
great, delicious fire hose.
yes,
But still a lot.
Yes,
And I've
yes.
definitely interacted with folks from different programs. And I'll be like, oh, we're from the training center from CFD. And they're like, CFD. And I'm like, yeah, you're part of CFD. And they're like, we are. It's
I
just
know,
a
it's
very large group.
yes. So, and you can, it's not just, I think, not just within CFD, but it's easy to get siloed. I think you're doing your project and, that's what's important to you. And as it should be. So, but then it's also important to figure out how does it connect to all the other things that are being done and what are ways that we can help with that. And I think that's where the ICC, that's what we're trying to do is to figure out what are the different ways that we can help get the word out about all these different projects and get people to work together.
And I imagine that the two meetings help hopefully break down some of those silos for exactly those reasons you point out. Like, oh, I didn't know you were doing this, or this looks really cool. We should collaborate. Yeah.
Yes.
So is there anything y'all do specifically for like engaging early career researchers or like brand new members? Is there any sort of not onboarding per se, but is there anything that kind of really helps beginners?
Yeah, so for early career researchers, I would say that our spring meeting is fantastic. It gives them an opportunity to come and learn about all the different things that are happening at CFD, but also gives them the chance to share their research and what they're doing. And George does a fantastic job with those ribbons so that everybody loves. And so it gives them an opportunity, to try to win an award. More importantly, it gives them the opportunity to practice presenting and sharing the research that they're working on and meeting with other seasoned researchers and principal investigators and get valuable feedback.
So if we kind of think, a little forward thinking here,
Mhm.
how do you see the CFDE community evolving over the next 5 years? Or what do you hope maybe the community
Yeah.
evolves toward?
Yeah. I think my hope is that the goal would be that someone can come to our ecosystem, find the relevant data that they need, and not only find it, but understand it and understand what tools are available, and then get the training they need to actually be able to use it, and then connect with the right people to maybe make that idea of what they had for that data and tools to keep moving that project forward. And so I think in that vein, another thing that the ICC is working on is developing a talent knowledge graph. And so the hope for that is that, we can take information about all the different members of CFDE and take all the different papers that they've authored and the data sets that they've used to author those papers and create a knowledge graph where people can come in and hopefully find themselves and then see, oh, who am I close to in this graph? Who's someone else that's connected to me and how are they connected to me? And the hope is that maybe they'll find someone that they didn't know, that they haven't worked with before. And they'd be like, oh, I didn't know that this person was working with this specific type of data, but they have, and that paper looks really cool. And, maybe I should reach out and find out more about that. And we can collaborate on, a grant or some other project that will continue to move both of our research forward.
So like a collaboration knowledge graph then?
That's right. Yeah. So we're focused on people.
Okay, very cool.
Right?
I like it.
Yes.
And so I guess you could use it to even, if you've got, could you use it if you have like potentially like, I really need, some more expertise to be able to like pull in this data set too. And could you use it to track that too?
Yes, that's the hope. Yes.
Okay,
so
awesome.
You could say, it's our hope is that it has a primitive, AI chat bot, I want to say, kind of thing built in right now. We're still working on the development. But yeah, so that you can chat with it and say, I'm working on X and I need expertise in Y. Can you show me, who has this expertise and how are they connected to me if they are connected? And normally it's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation. I think you'll find that a lot of times there is somebody out there. They may not be directly connected, but maybe two steps away, maybe. That there's somebody there that has the expertise that you're looking for. So, or you're working on a grant and you don't have the expertise in maybe that specific subject area and you're hoping to be able to find somebody that does. So those are all just different ways to help build collaboration and partnerships.
Yeah, and I know quite a bit of the different funding that comes out of CFDE has this requirement that you use 2 different data sets from 2 different programs. And I wonder if this would, be a really nice like plug for that tool to be like, hey, like you probably have expertise in like, this data set and you want to work with this other one over here. And here's some people working on that.
Yes, right.
That's really cool. Okay. Is that like already available somewhere?
So we presented a poster on it at the spring meeting, but it's not live just yet, but we hope it will be soon.
Right. So this is hot off the presses.
We still need to add additional. Right now it's very small. The number of members that are in it are small. And so we're still working on adding, everybody that's part of CFDE to it.
Gotcha,
we want to make sure that the data is as accurate as it can be before we put it out there. Otherwise, people might be like, wait, that's wrong. That's not my paper. Or that's not my data set.
All right. Well, that means stay tuned, folks. You heard it here first.
Stay tuned, yes. Yes.
All right. So for our listeners who do want to get involved with CFDE, we've talked a little bit about, some of the various goings-on, right? We've talked about meetings, collaborations, just using the data. You've mentioned the Slack workspace, the newsletter. I'd love to know sort of where you think a good starting place is, but like which of these things are also like completely open to, folks who are not yet CFDE funded. So for instance, can anyone sign up for the newsletter?
They can't if they want to. They have to reach out. So I would say the best place to start is to go to our CFDE Connect website, which is cfdeconnect.org. They can get an overview of our center, but also of CFDE as a whole. And there they can reach out to us if they're interested in getting on the newsletter. They won't be able to join Slack and things like that if they're currently if they're not a member of CFDE. But we're always happy to share the newsletter with them if they're interested in learning about the different things that are taking place. And so please do check out our website. It actually has a chatbot built in, and so you can ask it questions. That's also a work in progress, but it will share some basic information about CFD if you have questions about CFD based on what's there currently. But that will continue to improve over time as we continue to build out all the different resources that are available.
Awesome. So sounds like we've got lots of things to stay tuned for, and things are going
Yes.
to continually be built, and we'll hopefully have more paths for, people who want to start out in the CFTE world. So thank you so much, Swathi, for coming on and talking to us a little bit more about the Integration and Coordinating Center. Had a really great chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Decoding the Data Ecosystem, a CFDE Training Center podcast. Be sure to check out our other episodes in this series. Find out more information about CFDE data and tools that may be valuable to your research by visiting our website.